Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes, and it's in Prapana Jivanamritam, chapter 5, words of nectar from the devotees. Sata sandhi jara jara tava eva tara e kalevara. A dancing puppet of 100 joints, your mortal coil. In its last moments, this physical form is doomed to destruction. Ashes to ashes, worm and dung. What was beautiful once is a horrible thing. To adore it is the gravest misconception. So, we are constantly bombarded with excessive amounts of what's contrary to this. It's always in our faces, with all the oversharing, selfie mania on social media, Instagram and Facebook. Even our friends who know better are ignoring this. Please remind us about this simple truth.
Well, it reminds me of what my cousin said to my mother. My cousin, who was very beautiful as a young woman, and actress, singer, entertainer, everything. And she said to my mother a few years ago, she said, "Aunt Rose, let's look at old pictures of us when we used to look good." Which was kind of the truth of the matter. Yes, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is written in different places and about this. It's even in, the mundane poets understood this, but they put the emphasis in a different way. But in one poem, it's called Litany in the Time of Plague by Thomas Nash, written like hundreds of years ago in England when they had the plague, and he said, "Beauty is but a flower, wrinkles will devour, brightness falls from the air, queens have died both young and fair." So that was going on, hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago. The same thing always. If you look in the pastimes of Rukmini and Krishna, when she writes a letter to Krishna begging him to kidnap her, seeing that that's the only way out of this karmic circumstance that she's found herself in. And this message is sent through a Brahmin. One of the slokas being, Shrutva gunan bhuvana sundara srinvatam te nirvishakarna vivaroy haratonga tapam rupam dusham dushimatam akilartalabam twayachyuta vishati chitram apatrapam me. She's saying, now I've heard about you, what through here, like nama, rupa, guna, what I can understand hearing about you, you're the most beautiful thing in the world. It's hard to really render bhuvana sundar, but that's one way of saying it. It's an expression. Because they'll say, well, Krishna's not of this world. We understand that. It's poetic expression. Most beautiful thing in the world. Bhuvana sundar. Hearing that impression came, that's what is meant by nama rupa, that the rupa, the form comes from sound. This is the way. And rupam dusham dushimatam akilartalabam, and seeing your beautiful form, I think I've got everything, I feel totally satisfied. And she says, now shamelessly, I'm begging you to kidnap me. That's one of the slokas. But in one of the other ones, she's saying, having some vision of you, Krishna, who are so beautiful, sweet, and charming. Your body's a festival for the eyes, and all these things, she's saying. Then who could accept a man who's made out of flesh, blood, pus, mucus, bile, air, a bag of these elements? Who could accept that as an alternative to you? We talked about Shankaracharya the other day. One of his famous Nari Stanabarana Nabish Desham Drishta Maga Maga Mahavesham. He talks about, how shall we put this? I think that well, as Guru Maharaj, I'll try and explain him via Guru Maharaj, and Guru Maharaj put it another way. Well, let's say Shankaracharya is saying, whatever you're attracted to, it's just an arrangement of flesh and blood. The fact, we know the breast, if you peel away the skin, not so attractive. I mean, hopefully, there'll be someone, no, there's a side on the, I understand. Normally, in most cases, right, peel away just this layer of skin, the old saying, beauty's only skin deep, right? Take away the skin, and when you see what's there, we're somewhat astonished. Even the writer, Jonathan Swift, he wrote Gulliver's Travels, and everyone thought, oh yeah, what about, the Lilliputians, the giant, we know. That's one story, where the Lilliputians are the little people and Gulliver's the giant. It's actually a political satire. Anyway, I'm not here to give a class on English literature. But anyway, it's a famous scene where he puts out a fire. But anyway, and that's one of the lands. He goes to four journeys. Another, after that one, he goes to a place where they're all giants and he's a little person. And they're charmed by this little talking person. So a king, his princess daughter, like she's 16 or something, it's her birthday, so they give him as a gift to her. And she thinks it's really amusing to have this little tiny man. And she puts him on her breast, and this is where the humor comes in. He's describing from being a little tiny man, because these male fantasies, this gigantic breast, which when magnified to that level, is not appearing so attractive to him. So even writers with a little bit of sense, they're playing with these subject matters to let people know. Right? Prabhupada, he told this story, what was it called? Liquid Beauty. It used to be a famous play in ISKCON. The devotees would always... This man was so enamored by this woman's beauty, and she thought it was really, degrading, humiliating. So she thought of a way to bring him to his senses, and she took a strong purgative, and for a couple days, she invited him to come visit her in a few days. She was passing stool and vomiting, but she saved everything in buckets. So when he came to see her, finally he found this emaciated, ugly woman, and he said, where's, what's her name? He said, no, that's me. And he said, no, she looks very different. She said, no, what I've done is, you're so attracted to my beauty, I've separated my beauty and I put it in these buckets over here. So this story is called Liquid Beauty. So there's that side of the equation. But Guru Maharaj, he's very generous and a realist. So when he was talking on the subject of subjective and objective, he said, the scientists, they have spoiled the moon. But he's like joking a little bit. He said, they've spoiled the moon. He said, why? Because previously, in poetry, there's so many beautiful descriptions of the moon. We know in Krishna poetry, Krishna, Mukha Chandra, and there's other Chandras. Any Chandra means the moon, and moon-like face and all the very beautiful, the moon, but the honeymoon of the newly married. And so the moon has been the subject of love poetry forever. And when Guru Maharaj is saying, but the scientists, they ruined it, because that's from a subjective aspect. They went there and everyone was so excited, like when they brought moon rocks back and they show, it's just, these rocks and sand, it's nothing special. So he said, they ruined it. And then Guru Maharaj compared it to female beauty. He said, if we dissect the body of a woman, he said, what we will discover on the dissection table, he said, is that all we should consider? Going back in the other direction, the power of, now looking at the other side, that power of the subjective aspect of feminine beauty, and we could say, and masculine too, but on this feminine beauty, it's there. It's not that there's nothing. As Prabhupada told once, when the Bombay, Bollywood, beautiful movie star came, many of them we know, they're devotees of Krishna. Whatever you see on the screen is one thing. So many, you could say most of them, they know who is Krishna, Radha and Krishna, and they were raised this way. Anyway, so they want to come and see Swamiji and get his blessing. The beautiful Bollywood movie star comes and, all the men are like stunned, see the beauty of this woman, and after she leaves, no one wants to really say anything, and Prabhupada's very aware of the situation. And he said, we are not like the Mayavadis. He said, they will say, a beautiful woman is going to say, that's just an illusion. There's nothing there. That's their way of trying to deal with us. He said, but the Vaishnava, they'll say, oh, there was a beautiful woman. He said, but they won't do anything about it. And as Guru Maharaj said, and they will say, beautiful woman can also be engaged in the service of Krishna. That's, that should not disqualify her from getting that opportunity. So Guru Maharaj said, rather we will say, be off, means get out of here, you scientists. We would rather live in the subjective world. So it's, in other words, what I mean by saying from different points of view is, it's all understandable. But it's flawed thinking to think that you're the center of existence, unless you actually are. Like Krishna is the absolute, he's the center of existence, etc. So he can be forgiven for thinking that way, or saying man mana bhava mad bhakto majaji mam namaskuru, or sarvadharma. He says all these things. Sometimes Guru Maharaj says, shamelessly, he's pleading with Arjuna. Arjuna, I'm everything. I'm telling you for your benefit. I'm everything. He says, shamelessly, he's pleading with Arjuna. So we can forgive that if you are the absolute center. For all others, it's problematic. So, and this is the inherent, the glaring inherent flaws of humanism. It was just pointed out by Alexander Solzhenitsyn in his Harvard commencement address called A World Split Apart, where he called this humanistic idea, and this is way before Facebook and all this stuff, he called it the disastrous deviation of the Enlightenment. I mean, that's the way it translates into English. I don't know the original Russian, but the disastrous deviation of the Enlightenment. And what is he referring to? The Enlightenment I mean, how ironic in that sense, was where he said they removed God from being at the center of everything and put man with a capital M, at least in English, man with a capital M as the center of everything and the measure of all things. And so, and then in time, you have others wanting to get their position in that. So women say, "What about us?" Then after a few hundred years, oh, all right, we can include women too if we have to. If you're going to bitch about it, I guess we have to. Right? So you have to include women. Then you have to include, well, not just white people. Okay, we'll include other people too. Then it goes on to, to gender, to this, that, the everything. Everyone wants to get their chance at being the center of all existence, right? I rule, and as I've told before, it's all humanistic sloganeering, which is particularly blatant in advertising, right? MasterCard, master the possibilities, right? Nike, just do it. Like, if there's some conscience that's suggesting to you to restrain yourself, just do it. Right? Why? Because you're number one. So you're number one, just do it. You rule. You're the center of your world, of your universe. Looking out for number one. I like L'Oreal. They always say, why? Because I'm worth it. And as I told, the most blatant expression was one commercial in America where their slogan was, total indulgence, zero guilt. That's how they're marketing their total indulgence, zero guilt. Why? Because I'm worth it. I'm number one. I rule. The problem with this is you're not number one, you don't rule, and hardly are you worth it. Temporarily you might be worth it, but not for long. So, but babies think that they're the center of existence. We hear about that. Jiva Goswami sings sometimes Krishna allows someone within the womb of the mother to have the awareness of their last 100 births. Imagine. Sometimes, because we're exposed to Krishna consciousness, we can think about it in principle. It's better not to know too much about it, because from a humanistic point of view, we'll just have a romantic fantasy, as people do, who are under the influence of New Age thinking. They always remember, there's someone, and I was a princess, and but they're never told, you were a stool-eating pig in a little shitty town outside of, blah, blah, blah. That they're never, they were always a prince or a princess or something like that. So that makes you think, again, greatness. The disastrous deviation of the Enlightenment. Right? So he said, man with a capital, man, put at the center of all things and becomes the measure of all things, the value of all things. Someone wrote an article called The Context of No Context, which is epitomized in a generation of people who the only things are important which are meaningful or understandable to them and their friends. not history before or what comes up, just our group. And we have a particular jargon and concept that we're all initiated within. It sort of resembles reality, but if it's not, it's problematic. So one has to become a little thoughtful. Again, it's understandable. People are going to share certain things. It's just part of being human, you could say. How are you? How are you? You know, that kind of thing. And, you know, the extensions of you, your family and friends. But where the thoughtfulness comes in is we have to factor in when things are not so well. What about when someone dies? They had to think about that at Facebook. What to do when somebody dies. What to do with their account and all the postings and the this, that, and the other thing. Because they want to be sensitive about it, and at the same time, they don't want to spoil the illusion for everybody else. Or, you know, things do not always go so well when you live in a world of janma, mrityu, jara, vyadi, birth, death, old age. All birth is not a happy one. Right? Doesn't always go well for the mother or the child. Right? Disease. Right? Growing old. The painful realization, once the world is shifted to become a youth-oriented culture, where everything of value is equated to youthfulness, what will you do when you're no longer young? Right? The pain of growing old. It was already there before, but even more painful in a world with so much emphasis on being young. Social scientists have pointed out, not even within 100 years or less, people the progression or the emphasis used to be that young people envision themselves becoming adults, right? And a reversal took place where now it's adults envisioning themselves as being young. It's ironic, but it's true. So that means that growing old, which has always been difficult to do, is even more painful in a culture that places so much importance on being young, youthful. And then what to speak of death, right? Which Guru Maharaj, he says, to not deal with that is to be cowardly. The inevitability of death, to be in denial about that. And that's what Bhaktivinoda Thakur is speaking to. What is the ultimate, destination of this body? What happens to it? We can't bear to see those things, right? Or to think about those things. When we're confronted with it, it's very disturbing. So you have what they call in Vedic jargon, smashana vairagya, or feelings of detachment that automatically descend in the heart at a funeral or the passing of someone from this world. But it's momentary. So, and Prabhupada would like to quote this sloka from the Bhagavatam. Yasyatma buddhi kunape tridatu ke swadid kalatrad dishuboma ijadi Yat tirtha buddhi shalile nakarhaj chid janeshu abhigyeshu sa eva gokara. Tridhatu means the three elements. The one who accepts this body as themselves, Atma Buddhi Tridhatu ke, and Swadit Kalatra, wife, children, family, their own. Boma Ijadi thinks the world of their birth is worshipable. And you find it's interesting. Anywhere you go in the world, any nationality, the people always think their country is the best. And it's just, I found, everywhere I've traveled in the world, it's just a thing. That wherever you are, those people, and then within that country, where the people, they think that's the best. Unless someone's from another place, in which they'll tell you that where they're from, that's the best. So it says Boma Ijadi, means it means nationalism. Nationalistic. And we see sometimes how foolish it is, because what was a national identity 100 years ago or 200 years ago is either gone or changed or shifted in time. So it means, again, projecting outward and identifying with what is external. It's giving you all variety of external identity. Identifying with external things as one's substantial self. Yatirtha buddhi, and you go to the holy places, not to associate with genuine substantial Vaishnavas, but sightseeing. Janeshu abhigyeshu sa eva gokara. Here, kara means ass. So such a person is no better than a cow or an ass. So generally we think, well, why put cows? We like cows. Krishna likes cows. Why is in this sloka the cow not being used in a glorifying way? Well, we've seen what it's a reference to is when a cow, there's a stillborn calf. You understand? It means the calf is dead. And the cow is licking the calf and trying and giving so much affection. The calf is dead. That's what it means. It's very heavy. It's saying that's what we're doing. All this so-called affection is like the mother cow licking the dead calf. That's what it is. Happy, happy, happy all the time. Is there anything more depressing we could say? But then you think, well, why are we laughing? We're as guilty as anyone else of these things, but by the grace of our Guru Varga, Sadhu Shastra Guru Vaishnava, at least we have some idea that there's another type of life that's possible. Right? Guru Maharaj in his prayer, in the Bhaktivinoda Thakur prayer, the line Sagar Maharaj rendered it as, said, all this familial affection is a colossal hoax. Hare Krishna, there's nothing really substantial there when all is said and done. But again, this doesn't mean like when I was a young devotee, I was in the hospital and where my brother was a doctor, a young doctor. And he came to visit me. I was in the hospital bed, and before he came, some devotees had come. They brought me prasadam. They were sitting, laughing, joking, having a good time, and everything. And then my brother came, and they went like, "Well, I guess we got to go," and they left. And then I turned to my brother, and I was like, and my brother said, "I don't understand, You were with your friends, laughing and joking and having a good time. And now I come and you get all serious, And I said, with you, there's nothing to laugh about." And he's like, "Oh." But he has a sense of humor. So it doesn't mean to be callous. We're going to say, "Oh, these children we have, they're just little bags of stool, and look at it, they smell, they're terrible, get that thing out of here." I mean, it's true on a certain level. But they're cute. They're cute little, bags. I mean, we know what they do, especially for the first couple of years. So, but we're still going to have normal affection for family and friends, but in the background, little philosophical understanding should be there. I remember being like 13 years old, and I was in the kitchen or something. My mother was talking to me. She was doing something in the sink, and I'm at the table. She's talking to me, and it suddenly occurred to me, I'm saying, it's a little cruel, but I said, this woman is talking to me like she knows who I am. And suddenly I found that was amusing, but also a little scary. And then I realized that I don't think I'd looked at my mother's face for many years. You just sort of take it for... So then I started looking at her face, and I was like, oh my God, like, who is this? I think that's just maybe a result of the onset of puberty. But but it occurred to me that like all this friendly, and we've been talking for years and everything, and then I thought on some other level, we don't really know each other. So we're in a precarious situation because we're surrounded at times by family and friends, and we have to have some normal dealings with them. But, and remain true to Krishna consciousness at the same time. And ideally, if they express some appreciation for Krishna consciousness, then everything can be adjusted very nicely. It's when it's not that one is put into an awkward situation, where they still, in Guru Maharaj's words, on the basis of karmic debt, you have to give something, right? While being true in your heart to Krishna conception. So we would hope, we can't tell the devotees or devotee children they can't be a part of the modern world, but try to make it Krishna-centered as far as possible. And I found something interesting with Gurudev when he would go all over the world, and they take so many pictures of him. But the devotees, he would ask to see their pictures, and they would show some picture, like a close-up of him or something like that. And it wouldn't make him happy, or It didn't make him unhappy, it just didn't do anything for him. The pictures that he liked, whereas if you showed an auditorium full of people and he's preaching, that picture he liked. And he wanted to show to everybody. But just a picture of him like this or like that, okay, but if there was a room full of people, why didn't you show all the people who were listening to me when I was going like this or like that? So, it's unhealthy to think you're the center of everything. We see what fame does to movie stars, rock and roll people, what that type of intense being at the center of everything, it's not good for your ego. Spiritual life, we're told at the basis of it, there has to be some humility. Doinya, Atmani Vedam, etc. And what is one way of expressing humility? Is saying, being aware that you're in the proximity of greatness, acknowledging there's something greater than you. That's a wonderful thing. And when it comes to divinity, that can be pursued eternally, endlessly. It can go deeper and deeper and deeper because you're dealing with the infinite. So when the finite becomes aware of the proximity of the infinite through Sadhu, Shastra, Guru, and Vaishnav, that's very enlivening, it's invigorating, inspiring. But to try and present yourself as the center is sort of sad, pathetic, and ultimately a losing proposition. Pratishta, one meaning of pratishta, generally it's rendered as name and fame. Right? And it's the worst thing for a devotee. Kanak, kamini, pratishta. Kanak means money. Kamini generally means women, but the inverse as well. But pratishta, we're told of the three, because the first two, they say, wow, but they're told the third one, pratishta, is the worst. And so name and fame, but another way of putting it is, self-assertion, self-promotion. It's not good for the soul. But in the modern world, some literary critics, they've pointed out, to use words like modesty or virtuous, humility. No one uses these words anymore, or if they do, they have to be put in quotes and followed by whatever that means. So as to not risk sounding too sincere. You wouldn't want to be accused of being sincere. Really. And men who are assertive to the point of being aggressive, young women are told, that's what you should be like. If you want to, be someone in this world, be like that, assertive and aggressive. So, on the one hand, we can say, oh, this is just part of the modern world. On the other hand, it's a cause for concern. If, feminism is a wonderful thing, it means equality of women. But if it one of the side effects is the defeminization of women. That's lamentable. So all of these things are like that. So we come back to Guru Maharaj, I'm saying, phrasing this as, are we interested in freedom for the senses or freedom from the senses? Freedom for the senses sounds more appealing. Sounds like, no, that's freedom for the senses. Because we're thinking, as long as my senses, mind, are being restrained, then they're not fully expressing themselves. I'm not fully expressing myself. So I need freedom for the senses. That's how I will achieve ultimate self-expression. The Vedic side of that equation is freedom from the senses. To be the slave of your senses is not to be, what kind of a master is that? A deluded master. To be a slave of the mind and senses. So the emphasis is on becoming freedom from the senses to allow for self-expression. But that's easy to say. And how someone will not be seduced by a world that's full of endless distraction, that promises freedom and self-expression and as a means to, ultimate happiness. So, it has to be voluntary, not by force, but someone has to come to the point of realizing that this is shallow, hollow, external. It's like the Prahlad sloka, Natevitu Svartakatim Vishnu Durasya Bahir Artamanina. So there's the husk, like we're in the land of rice. There's the husk, means the shell, the coating, and then the rice is on the inside. Right? The Bhagavatam Brahmastuti gives a similar example of saying, if you were taking after the rice has been husked, means separated into husk and, what's the part in the center called? It has a name.
Parmananda's
not
here.
kernel. Yeah. I forget what you call it, but anyway, so then you have a pile of husk. The same, what we're trying to do, we're taking the husk and then trying to get something out of that. It's not there. That's what the problem is. We're taking an external approach to try and address an internal need. Right? That's why it's a flawed way of thinking. That by acquiring, controlling, consuming things lower than us, I'll feel fulfilled and I'll achieve happiness and self-expression. Whereas it requires some rethinking the approach to offer myself in service to something infinitely higher as a means of fulfillment, self-expression, and achieving ultimate happiness. So that's why there's a war in that sense. Krishna conception and the Mayak misconception. But we have to be sympathetic. In a world of illusion, presenting a never-ending series of seductive illusions, then what can possibly help one other than coming in connection with Sadhu, Shastra, Guru, and Vaishnav? Brahmanda, Brahmite, Kona Bhagavan Jeev, Guru, Krishna, Prasade, Pai, Bhakti, Lata, Beed. Bhagavan, they're very fortunate. But having come in connection with Guru and Vaishnava, Krishna through his agents, Guru Maharaj compares to, drowning in the ocean of nescience for lifetimes, then coming onto the shore of the ocean of truth, saying to push that person back into the ocean of nescience is the most heinous thing imaginable. So we never want to be the cause of discouraging someone. So raso varjam rasopyasya param drishna nivartate. Our path and way of enchanting others is by presenting something higher and more desirable. Then we're told, then automatically the taste for the lower thing vanishes. So it means we have to compete, right? That's why I have theistic media studios and the full dome. We have to produce some, because the means for distribution is there. So we have no excuse. We can, if we produce content that's spiritually substantial and maybe has an element of entertainment at the same time, the apparatus, the technology for delivering it to everyone is there. So then we only have ourselves to blame that we, Krishna, who's reality the beautiful, the most charming, as Rukmini says, after hearing about you, you're the most beautiful thing in the world. I understand why we have eyes and senses. Then we'll say, we created opacity or obstructed the flow of the beauty of Krishna to others. We don't want to put ourselves in that position. So really we have to be sympathetic and serve nectar on a golden plate. That's the Gaudiya way. As Guru Maharaj said, I'll conclude with this, when they were doing a program in Bangladesh somewhere, and the advance notice somehow it didn't happen, and when they arrived, nothing had been arranged. So Guru Maharaj and his party, they had to get the sound system, cook something, get the pandal, stage, everything, which they did. And they had the kirtan. Guru Maharaj gave the talk, more kirtan, they distributed prasadam. And he said, at the end, one old man stood up and turned to all the people and he said, "This is Gaudiya Math. They did everything. We didn't do anything. They came here and served us nectar on a golden plate." He was a little like chastising everyone, but in the form of expressing his appreciation for what Guru Maharaj and his party had given them. So we're thankful. These things are there. It's how we keep in touch with so many, right? We have our Facebook account, Instagram, live stream. We're using, it's, so when people said to Saraswati Thakur, "Why are the sadhus using it? They shouldn't do that." His response was, actually, only they should be allowed to use these things. Only they have a legitimate purpose with using all of this. So, the onus is upon us to use the same technology to connect with everyone. How wonderful it is. We can be here in a relatively remote part of the world, Most people don't even know where we are. And we're not telling anyone either. But we can still go to all these countries. We can go to anybody's account on social media. So it's always that way. Anashaktasya vishan yutaham upayunjitaha nirbandha Krishna sambandhi yukta vairagyam yuchite. It's just how you use it. That's Rupa Goswami's Yukta Vairagya. Hare Krishna.